Hello, everyone, and welcome in our brand new webinar with Cargill. I'm just going to share my screen first. Let me see so that everything technically is working correctly. So normally you should see the slide, the introduction slides. I hope everyone can hear us, everybody can see us. Maybe just leave a short message in the chat so we know that everything technically is working correctly. And that we know that there are people in the audience available.
Yes, I have lots of thumbs up, so that seems to be working fine. Perfect.
All right.
Great.
First of all, I want to welcome and introduce you to Danielle. We're very honored to have her with this in this webinar about global recruitment marketing. She will introduce herself in the best possible way, of course, a bit later, within, let's say, 5 minutes. Next to me stands Mark. He's one of the founders of Simple, and I'm Steph, the marketing lead of Simple. If you have questions during the webinar, don't hesitate to ask them in the chat on the right hand.
On the right hand side, there's a Q&A. So if you can just click on the Q&A and send us questions, and I'll moderate it. That will be my only role today. So I'll moderate the questions, and then I'll kind of decide where and how we'll answer them.
All right, perfect. Before we start, I just want to introduce Simple really briefly. So what does Simple? We have an integrated recruitment marketing platform, and we try to provide qualified candidates in a user-friendly way through targeted advertising on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. We've also added Google, and we do this in a user-friendly process. Now, what sets us apart? We analyze lots of data points per month, but no worries, it's all integrated in our software. 93% of our users don't have any marketing experience, so you don't have to bother about all the data. We do that in the software itself. And here you can find some of our clients. And surprise, surprise, Cargill is also one of our...
Right in the middle of the slides, right? Key focal point. Could we make it a bit more subtle next time, maybe?
Before I give the word to Danielle, because therefore we're all here, I just want to really quickly recap what is recruitment marketing and what is recruitment marketing for us. Well, it's of course the use of marketing strategies to attract and engage potential job candidates by promoting an employer's brand and job openings. And this promoting thing is quite important because, of course, you need to have a budget for it. Otherwise, it's just not targeting the right people and also not the enough people. So which channels do you have to use, or that we think you have to use? Well, most of the recruiters, they're only using job boards or recruitment platforms. Well, only 20% of the job market is actually actively looking for a job, whereas 80% of the job market is not actively looking for a job. They have a job, but you still can convince them to change jobs by being on the channels that they use every single day, which is, of course, social media. Now, why social media? Well, first of all, it's quite cheap. You can have a really broad audience with not that much money. Second of all, it's easy to measure. Everybody that spends money for it, well, of course, you want to know what you're getting out of it. How much do you pay per candidate, per applicant? How much is your click-through, etc. It's quite easy to have some data of it. Third of all, you can target the right audience. And this is really important. If you're looking for digital marketeers, then you can target them easily via social media. And like I already said, you really have a broad reach. And just to give you some numbers, these are the worldwide users per month. And indeed, it's only 350 million. And
only,
it's quite a lot. But if
35 times Belgium, but okay.
Yeah, but it's worldwide.
Yeah, I know.
If you compare it to social media, then most of the people are on LinkedIn, and of course it's a broader reach. You can reach more candidates on LinkedIn than on Indeed. But the big advantage lays in TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, where you really can have a really, really broad reach for your job openings, for your employer brands. All right.
Can I just intersperse one thing, because I just want to put those numbers in a kind of a bit of a context. In the meantime, if you look at the total Meta group, which is combining Instagram, Facebook, and also WhatsApp, they are reaching more than 4 billion people worldwide. That's half of the global population. I think never before, and I'm happy to be challenged on this, but never before has there been a medium or a way of communicating where you can reach half of the global population. I think we talk about targeting, but I think the reach part is something which is really misunderstood on social media. I will talk a bit about budgets later, I think, but there's no other medium. That's why we're also, because we're ambassadors of using social media, but I'm always kind of flabbergasted, to use one of my more difficult English words that I've learned, that people are not kind of more keen on trying to understand how they can use this kind of medium, which again has never been available to anybody, to reach half the global population. Good. Now just remember, I was actually asked not to intersperse too much. So therefore, I will try and shut up for the rest of the webinar. Promise. And I won't tell anything while Danielle is talking. I really promise. So don't worry, Danielle.
All right. And by this, I give the word to Danielle. We're all looking forward to her story about recruitment marketing and employer branding globally. So let's give the mic to her.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. And Mark, do feel free to interject anytime. And I love an interactive session. So if you do have questions or you want to add something, both of you, please go ahead and welcome any questions as well. So thank you for having me. I'm honored to be asked to be a part of this session today, and I'll be discussing a project that we've taken on within Cargill around elevating our brand for our production workers. So I'll get to that in a moment. But just a little bit about me. So I consider myself a global citizen. I was born in Singapore to Canadian parents. At the time, they lived in Jakarta, Indonesia, and the medical at that time in the 70s wasn't as strong as it is now. So they had me in Singapore, moved back to Jakarta, and I grew up there from up to grade 12. So I finished all of my high school in Indonesia at international school. I relocated to Canada to go to university just because I wanted to get to know where my passport was from, and spent 14 years there. And in 2007, I again had international dreams and jumped at the chance to move over to Europe. And I've been based in Amsterdam ever since. I married, and he came with me 17 or so years ago. We weren't married then, so we got married as we jumped over the side of the pond, and we now have 2 daughters, aged 8 and 12. So that keeps us very busy outside of work as well. So about my professional life, I've had over 20 years in talent acquisition. I'm a recruiter at heart. I've done many different things, but at the end of the day, it's really about finding, the right candidates who have an alignment with the organization, and to be able to give them those opportunities to grow within the organization. So I just really love recruitment, and kind of everything I've done touches that. I started my career in university recruiting. So I recruited for the university I went to in Calgary, Canada. I then moved over to Deloitte, where I spent 12 years in a variety of roles. So first in Canada, recruiting for the local Deloitte member firm, and then an opportunity came up internally to relocate to Europe, which brought us here. And that's where I started a global sourcing center. So we used our team to find candidates rather than going to agencies externally. And then I moved into partner and director hiring. I spent a year, probably 2 years even, traveling around and upskilling our member firms around the globe in recruitment processes and candidate experience. And then when I left, I was leading the global internship program. So as I said, I've kind of touched everything within recruiting. I left there to join a global law firm called Allen & Overy. It's now called A&O Sherman, for those in the legal know. based out of it. It is a UK-based law firm, but global. And I spent 5 years there leading the employer brand, but also a number of different global recruiting projects. So we revamped the entire selection system, put in an immersive situational judgment test, redid the career website. I did the employer brand, and just as I left, rolled out the new EVP. So that kind of did everything I could possibly do in that role, and then moved to Cargill. So I've now been at Cargill almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in January, and I'm leading the global employer brand here, as well as university recruiting and sourcing for EMEA. So again, as you can see, I like variety. So they keep me busy with many things, and I'm really enjoying it. So a little bit about Cargill for those that don't know. We are a B2B food company, but we do many, many things. And our purpose really is to nourish the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. And I'll talk about this a little bit further, but really that is our purpose, and it drives kind of everything we do. And you'll see that in my discussions around the EVP and such. So I went from a Deloitte, which was almost 250,000, to the law firm, which is about 7,000. But large as far as global law firms go, and then now back up to 160,000 global employees. So I think I find my comfort in these large organizations. What's really interesting, I think, about Cargill is we are almost 160 years old. We're huge, and we're a family-owned company. So I think that's the unique thing, and we can really draw that out in a lot of our messaging around EVP, brand, and recruitment marketing, as we are family-owned. So that kind of makes us quite unique and quite special in our messaging as well. So the final slide about Cargill here is just to give you an idea of kind of where it kind of tees up everything I'm going to talk about. Is we are in kind of everything you can imagine, from your time you wake up to the time you go to bed, and everything you do in between. So, you know, all of the products here are listed. I'm not going to go into it, but it just gives you a little flavor of how complex of an organization we are, and how we really have to be targeting our messaging quite differently to our different types of hires that we make.
But chances are high that everybody in the audience has at least had an interaction with Cargill products today already.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I didn't know that until I started. I was like, wow, they really are in absolutely everything. So yeah, absolutely, you have. So COVID came, as everyone knows, 2020, and during that time, the organization really. Not that they didn't before, but I think they really realized that our production workers, the ones at the front line, making sure all these products get to the right places and to our customers on time, really are the heart and soul of our business. And so they really wanted to take a step back and put a spotlight on those workers. They've done so much to keep Cargill running for 159 years. And it was time to kind of really show, you know, kind of spend some more time understanding what is valuable for them as an employee, and what we can do for them as an employer, and then how we translate that into external messaging to attract and retain, you know, the right people for us, and be that organization they want to grow in. So we recognize that having a strong EVP is really critical for many reasons. And if you are HR people on this call, this is probably nothing new, but it is always a good reminder that to have a strong EVP is really important to attract the right talent. So the EVP is that deal between us and our people. It's what makes us unique. It's kind of that match, you know, like, here's what we can offer you. Does that fit with your goals and your dreams about what you want to do? And if so, then there's really a good synergy. And I think it's important to have a very strong EVP. And we do. So this we knew going into the project that I'm about to explain. It's also really important for retaining of employees. So if you have a compelling EVP that is true, that is really the essence of who you are, then your employees are going to feel that. They're going to realize that you're walking the walk, you're talking the talk, that, you know, everything you say you are, and they're going to be engaged and they're going to stay. As well as I mentioned, engagement here. So it's cost efficiency, which everyone loves. It's really important that you are retaining the right candidates, and that you are true to yourself in your EVP messaging, and they feel that, because the cost of a turnover, the cost of a poor hire is high, and just that time it takes to train someone into that new role is really, it really kind of hits the bottom line. So that's one thing when I'm speaking to leaders, and I don't want to sound like HR, but I want to really explain what an EVP and why it's important and this and that. You really can talk from that cost perspective as well, and that really does hit home. And our EVP is really the key component to our employer brand. So that's sort of where I step in my role, is you take the EVP and then you move into kind of the employer brand, which is how you take the EVP essence and messaging and translate it into the external market.
Could I just intersperse for a second there? And here I go, but you invited me to do so.
I did.
I'm really happy you talk, actually, even if you would look at this, the attraction of talent, it's 1 out of 5, right? But I'm very happy you actually put the focus also on the fact that it's also very important to do this for your current employees, to reassure them. And we'll talk a bit about marketing in general later on. But I think, if you look at luxury advertising, right? And Stephanie is now thinking, where is this going? Right? That's her face when I'm doing something. If you look at luxury advertising, the way houses like Chanel and others look at their advertising, it's not so much about attracting new customers as much as it is about reassuring people currently having a Chanel handbag or Louis Vuitton handbag that they made the right choice, right? And to reassure them in doing that. And I think you can actually draw that back then. That's why I'm so happy with you showing that. Most people think about recruitment marketing just about attracting new talent. But as much, it is also a way to reassure your own team that, as you said so eloquently, you walk the talk, that they can actually see it across them. And that's also something we hear actually from customers when they do campaigns, that they're surprised by the very positive reaction from their team or their people saying, wait, I saw this on my Facebook, and it reassures them also in having made the right choice.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see that as well. And I can talk to that a little bit further on as well. Yeah. So we also know that having the relevant employer brand is key. So as I mentioned, we have the EVP translated to our employer brand, which brings that value proposition to life, both for current and potential candidates, as Mark alluded to as well. It's really how the company is perceived as a place to work. So this can influence the ability to attract and also retain talent. So the messaging we have within our employer brand, it's really that, we use it within our internal communications, but also in our career site, our social media presence. This is on, across LinkedIn all the way through to TikTok. We have a very strong social media team internally that spend a lot of time, with key messages that are also for internal but external, and we partner very closely with our marketing and communications team as well as recruiting, just so we kind of go at that at one place. We do a lot around employee testimonials. We love this. We love our people to tell their stories, and this is really such a good way to get your employer brand out. We do this in video. We do it in small stories. We bring a lot of their quotes to life, and we do this across the organization and in all different levels. So that's just kind of how we have brought it to life and do bring it to life, sort of from all of the roles that we recruit for and want to retain. And obviously having a strong brand and really telling the story has the bottom effect of recruiting top talent. So we knew, however, going back to the production workforce, that we had to do something a little bit different. So we do all of the things I've mentioned in the previous slide, and we do it quite well, I think. But in 2022, we realized that we need to spend a little bit more time focusing on our production workforce. So we were committed to creating a differentiated value proposition to really help how we attract, retain, and create more meaningful work experiences for our global plant employees. So what we did was we created something, and if you go to the next slide, that I hadn't really dug into in previous organizations, but this is basically what I'm living and breathing now, is we created a targeted value proposition. And I love this, because what this really is it targets a certain type of employee, and therefore a type of role that you're looking to recruit for. and it focuses on everything from development opportunities, training, the unique benefits, and the tailored career paths for that audience. So in 2022, we kicked off a global project around this to really elevate our production workforce and how we can really essentially get that targeted value proposition to ensure that their careers internally and their growth and development are all uplifted, and then in turn we're using what we find from that to recruit externally for particularly for the plant. So these are the operators, these are the mechanics, these are also the engineers, quality assurance, the R&D. So it's kind of everything, but really I think mainly focus on the operators and engineers is what I'm going to specifically talk about today. So in North America, we kicked it off with a number of focus groups.
I can ask a question. Is this the first time that the concept, because it's the first time I hear about this, was this the first time you actually started working on a TVP in Cargill, or had that been done before for other audiences or for other segments?
I believe this is the first time it's been done at Cargill. Yeah. So to this specific degree and magnitude. And in fact, in my career, I've never come across something quite like this before either, which is why I think it's quite an interesting story to tell. And because we, keep in mind, we are quite large. So this is a large group of people, but we are very diverse as well in our geography. So in North America, kicked it off with a number of different focus groups across Canada and the US. And that took in listening sessions from a variety of different individuals, from, new joiners, early career, so kind of at that intern trainee level, all the way up to the leaders, and just listen to the sentiments around what it's like to work here, what they want in their development, what keeps them here, what's the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And they put on, it was quite a long process to go through all of this and then distilled the information down. And notice there's a lot of common themes that sort of bubbled up to the surface. And again, back to our purpose, and we have very strong values and behaviors. And as we're a family company, everything, we really do have a very strong, unique culture internally. So that came up. But from that also came these key unique messages around, benefit. We offer great benefits in the US, and that was something, and Canada, that was something they really found valuable. They love the collaboration that happens. They feel that family environment. So all of this kind of came up and created these very key messages that we could use internally and externally. And I should also add, this isn't just about recruitment and recruitment marketing. It was also development programs were developed, and anything you can kind of think of around a person's career was really looked at and emphasized. So from that, the creative assets were created. So I'm thinking more on the recruiting side. The recruiting material was created. The recruitment marketing strategy was put into place. Efforts were launched. And I'll show that in just one second about what happened in North America. And then it was such a success that in 2023, we started the exact same process in EMEA. We're at the tail end of that, and we're currently in Latin America doing the same thing, and then eventually Asia Pacific. So this really is a global approach that will take probably about 3 to 4 years upon completion.
Okay.
So recruitment marketing in North America included social media. Again, we looked at what locations we're using, what type of social media, a lot of WhatsApp, where we're not doing that as much in EMEA. So, everything is very specific to and targeted to the type of individual, the location, and even within the location, how does that differ from Canada to the States, and Wichita to High River, and so everything was very bespoke and personal on the way that we approached this. This I thought was unique. This is a great out-of-home advertising example, which they did in North America. So one of the headlines here is "Power Your Life Forward with a Team That Has Your Back," and so that's very, the Europeans say that's very American, and maybe it is, but that's what works. It was market tested, and this is this works there. Here in EMEA, it's slightly different, but essentially very similar messages. So we went through the same process here in EMEA with all the focus groups. We chose 6 countries because, again, we're a region, not just US and Canada. So we picked very diverse regions, and obviously with that came some interesting challenges, not so much challenges, but interesting output. So sentiments remain quite similar, even to our North American TVP. It's really around that collaboration, growth, development. But benefits, for example, was really high in the US and Canada, and here in Europe, benefits are kind of a given. So that was like, well, of course, everyone has that. So there, what kind of dialed up here more was innovation, and the fact that we've spent a lot of time renovating and really, doing more with our control rooms and things like that. So that really attracted people to come, and that's what keeps them here, as being on the cutting edge of the technology around production. What we also
So just interrupt, because there's a question from Kathy asking, have you developed a TVP together with an agency, or was it all done internally?
We had agency help, definitely. They had led the focus groups. We as Cargill were out of the focus groups, so we kept that with them so that we couldn't, so a lot of that was kept and distilled by an agency, so they didn't feel, people could feel that they could speak freely.
Okay.
And then we had the agency help throughout the entire process. Yeah.
And that, when we talk about agency, and because I just want to kind of dig a bit deeper, because we have quite a bit of people on the webinar coming from larger organizations, where HR as a kind of broad role. Was that then a marketing agency, a research agency, or was that several agencies together with HR leading the project? Or how did that work?
Yeah, it's a large creative agency, global creative agency, and we're using the same agency in all of our regions.
Okay.
They have global presence. There's also a project team that is dedicated to this project, given its expansion and length. And with that, there's people within HR, but more project managers that are just helping really drive it along, but with people from the different parts of HR that are helping implement these initiatives on the ground.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
right.
It is. It's a fascinating project, and it's been really interesting to be a part of. So one thing that just was a bit different here, before I get to the next slide on the creative in EMEA, that was different than North America, is we noticed that our engineers had slightly different needs than our operators. I guess it's not a huge surprise, but for them, the innovation and obviously the sustainability that we're very much a part of were really dialed up, whereas our operators were really more around, they could grow their own careers. There was a lot of opportunity, collaboration, a lot of, kind of this family feel. And the fact that they kind of, a lot of them come and stay, and they're here their entire careers. We do a lot of people that are retiring that have been here since, they started. So I think that's a big part of the sentiment as well, as this is a bit of a family to them too. So it's slightly different. And so for that, we actually had slightly different targeted value propositions for those two audiences. We had a broad, and you can go to the next slide if you want. We had a broad overarching eyebrow, as we call it, which is with us, it's more than a job, because that came up across the board. But then we had slightly different key messaging for our operators versus our engineers. So how we brought this to life, we did some out of home as well, but I didn't get into that too much, but because I wanted to focus on sort of our social, which is where we went first, given that that's really, you heard it from Mark, you'll hear it from me, you'll hear it probably everywhere. Social is the place to go, and don't be afraid of it. Simple, we found, made it very simple, hence the name. Good one, Mark. And everything's in one place. You can easily click, if you see my buttons on the right, you can click where you want your campaign to go. And for us, LinkedIn wasn't really where our target audience were sitting, so we chose the others. So Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and what did I say, the other one? Anyway, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Yeah. And then you can just, you create your ads, which we have done here. This is in Germany. So I'm going to talk specifically about our German campaign. We did them in other countries as well, but this was just the one I was pulling up recently. And so it says here, with us, it's more than a job. And then the second slide that kind of comes in is your career, your choice. So that was one of our headlines. And we have multiple headlines, and we wanted to make sure we're also trying to hire for diversity. And so there's a lot of female representation in a lot of our ads as well. So that was sort of the secondary component here. But as you can see with Simple, it was great because we put in a budget, and it's around $1,500 a month, I think it is roughly. We wanted to run the campaign for 3 months, so we just plug in our campaign money. It reminds you if it's running out and sends you a little message. You can just top it up again, and then you can just go in here and kind of see and track your campaign, by the day. And it's funny, then these spikes, I'm always like, oh, what happened on that day? Why was everyone really in there at that moment? And so you can kind of just make your own assumptions over it. But we've had great success, and I think just the simplicity of using the platform has made it just that much easier.
I'm blushing.
Yeah.
And they didn't ask me to put this in, to completely honest. They did not.
No.
No.
One of the things I just want to touch upon, and my German is very rusty, is that what strikes me now actually is that, and this is very typical for branding campaigns, is that if you look at the text which goes with the ad, you only talk about the people and the job and what it does for them, and there's no company advertising in there, which obviously I understand. I'm sure that's a conscious choice, but I just want to kind of bring that back to what we unfortunately see with other customers, to then give you a bit of a compliment, Danielle, is that most people or most companies try to do everything in one single campaign and talk about their company, and we're a market leader, etc., etc., etc. I'm not saying that's not important, right? But it's really striking that this is clearly an advertising about talking about people and about what they get out of jobs and what the company can give it to them. And we often talk about when we talk to customers, what's in it for the candidates, right? That's what you need to think about. Why would a candidate be interested in clicking on your ad or reading your ad? And nobody wants to know that you're well, yes, at a certain moment, it's reassuring to know you're working for a market leader, 160,000 people, etc., etc. But that's not what most people get, the heart of their job. And that's why I think it's such a strong campaign. You're focusing on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that is really one of our values, is putting people first, and that shows. And I think for us, these are if you go to the next slide, we targeted different countries, but if you can see, there's a number. This is just Germany. So some of these places, they don't know or care how big we are, right? They just care about the job and how they're going to feel at that particular plant during their their day and their career. And so that's the sentiment that we take. Some people in different jobs that within Cargill might really like the fact that we're so big and have all those opportunities, but others, may like just their local. Or we see a lot of movement between plants, like if they want to move language dependent. We do see people coming from other countries into the Netherlands to work here if it's an English speaking role and that's available. So there is a lot of movement as well, because they want something different, but they may not want to stay for personal reasons in that location. Maybe they move with their family. So this is just a dashboard or some breakdown of some of the data that we were able to pull from our campaigns. So we use Simple, as mentioned, and that's on the left. We also, with our creative agency, have done programmatic display and programmatic jobs. These are much more expensive, so that's why we've supplemented it with something that's a bit more tangible, and we'd like to be able to kind of see. And on Simple, you can really drill down to the exact location. You can put in how far you want it to be from that plant. So we kind of find the location. In Germany, for example, it's very large. We go 50 kilometers around each plant location and we target there. And in the display and jobs, it's a bit more broad in the sense that the display are the banner ads that pop up on the Weather Network, or you're looking for a recipe and you see an ad as you're scrolling through that. We're also targeting those within the specific locations, and we're doing jobs. So if someone's on a job board searching for an engineering role, and are within our target group, then they will see our ads pop up there as well. So we kind of did it in a number of different ways. And covered everything. And we've run this particular campaign we're doing for, I think it's 3 months. So this data is just from the first kind of 3 weeks of it. We also, in conjunction with this whole program, have built out landing pages for production in our locations within EMEA that we're targeting, because prior to that, or when I joined, one of the first questions I said is, why do we have no presence for the production workforce on our website? And so we made that happen. So we built out additional pages, and all of the candidates were directing from our simple ads, from our programmatic display ads, to the landing pages, which are new. They've just started. I think our first one went live in June, and our last ones went live just in October. So as you can see, the bottom one is our production landing page clicks. So during the campaign, just Germany received 18,000 clicks. Without the campaign, it received 2 clicks. So I think that's one of our biggest kind of features, that we're just like, wow, that was amazing. And, and then they click into apply and whatnot, or maybe they don't, maybe they come back and visit us again. And, with some of our programmatic display with our agency, they can retarget. So if they click on it, they can always retarget them to come back. And so we're kind of, just keeping the awareness of Cargill out there. And that is, I think, obviously hires or applicants and hires is where everyone wants to end up. That's the icing on the cake. But for us, it was also really about brand awareness and ensuring that people, when they see Cargill or hear about Cargill or see our logo somewhere, then they're like, oh, I saw that on the web page, or I remember scrolling and seeing that. And then when we do this again in a few months, then it's a bit more of a more, I guess, of a harder approach, or a targeted approach. Not targeted because there's targets, but that's where we kind of want to see more of the conversion, I guess. This is our first sort of, we're relatively early days, first production career pages, really kind of penetrating some of these markets for the first time, especially in Germany. And we're just kind of testing as we go.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back on some do's and don'ts later on. Yeah.
Yeah. So next slide, just brief, and some of the new creative is on the right. And it's not one size fits all. A global program, as you saw, we started in North America. We'll end up in APAC, and we're learning as we go with difference and kind of tweaking as we go. One of the things I learned is it's not just translating, it's transcreating. And I don't even know if that's a word, but we use it a lot. So, your career, your choice, with a direct translation may not actually work. And we learned that didn't work as well in some of the countries. So it's really about taking the essence of the statements and transcreating them into local language. So I think that's really important, is it's not just a simple Google Translate. It's really taking the essence of it and making sure you have people on the ground in those locations who can make those transcreations for you.
Yeah, can I just add sort of a bit on that, because we also get a lot of questions on, and for instance, taking Belgium as an example, we speak 2 languages in Belgium, Dutch and French. Customers ask us, let's just do something in English, right? Because I work with everybody, right? And on one hand, you can have discussions, and I'm sure you had in Cargill saying, we want to kind of have an authentic voice. We want to talk to people in their own language, which already is a reason in itself to do so. But I also just want to warn people that social media platforms like TikTok, like Facebook, they really want to provide the best possible user experience to their users. And they also kind of will give preference to ads in local language, or putting it around, right? If you would launch an ad in English in either Belgium, France, or Germany, for instance, that ad will be mainly shown to people who have their browser settings and have as a native language have English. So that's really on top of the authenticity, which I completely subscribe to. I think it's really important. There also are some technical impacts by not working in local languages.
In TikTok, on the TikTok platform, it's not even allowed to advertise in another language than the local language.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. See, even I have to sometimes learn. No, I often learn. Sorry. Several times a day, I learn something from Tiffany, to be very clear. but it's not often during the webinar, okay?
Yeah. And it's recorded. We have proof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, just test, learn, be agile, flexible. I think that's important. Don't let it get you down if it doesn't work the first time. Keep trying. Go social. We realized how big of a hit TikTok is. We had no idea. You know, my daughter tells me it's great, but I'm not on it. So when you kind of see it in its numbers, and for us, it was just a huge surprise at how well TikTok or all of our ads landed on TikTok. So yeah.
I think just to put a number out there, because your daughter is obviously right, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the latest number we had, because most people indeed think TikTok is for the younger generation, and then speaking as a 52-year-old, that's obviously very, very far from where I am. But 54% of the users of TikTok is older than 29. I don't want to offend anybody by implying that 29 might be old. I just want to kind of put that metric out there to kind of clearly indicate that, you know, this should be part of your media mix. This should be part of your communication when you start thinking about it. And again, neither Danielle nor I have any kind of shares or affiliation towards TikTok.
No,
but it's really,
I wish.
Yeah. It's really a very interesting platform to look at.
Yeah, and also I want to point out that it's for every function title and for every seniority, for every type of job. It's not only I would say the broad jobs, or no, it can also be for engineers and for really specific job functions.
Yeah. There's two questions coming up. I think one of them is probably more for Steph. The question is, how would you rate the success from Lean? How would you rate the success of Simple by job type, HR, IT, finance, engineering, operations? I think the question probably is more about social media for those kind of job times. Do we see any differences? Do we see any learnings from that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, every job function is different for those platforms. I don't know the numbers by heart, but it is quite difficult, as in sometimes the social media campaign itself is more important than the job function. You need to have authentic images. You need to say what's in it for the candidate, because you're talking to people that are scrolling 160 meters a day on social media. So that's a lot. You need to pop out. So I can definitely have a look for the numbers between the different job functions, but you have to test it. Like Danielle also said it, you have to test everything. And for a couple of euros, you can already run some tests for a couple of days. You can put some campaign live, some advertisement live. And after a couple of days, you will immediately see which one received the most clicks or the most applications. So I often am still surprised by what is working.
Just to build on that, and I'm just going to use the same number that I used before. Half of the global population is on Meta. We're talking Meta, right? Not even adding TikTok to that, right? If you didn't take into account, quite a bunch of developing countries who have not, optimally access to the internet, and whatever customers tell us, my audience is not on social media. I try not to laugh out loud because that's just significantly not true, right? Every kind of target audience is on social media. You need to think about it hard, and like Cargill has done, on how you reach them, because I think it's not about being able to reach them. It's thinking about the message that you use to reach them. There's a question from Yella, and I think I'll probably pick up on this one. How are you tracking conversion to application, and how do you evaluate the ROI of the exercise? I'll talk a bit technically, maybe. There are many ways, and this is basically all GDPR proved, right? Where you can actually track once people click on advertising, you can measure. And this is not, this is on an aggregate level. It's not about, naming people, but on an aggregate level, you can understand how long do they stay on the website, how much of the text have they read. So you can use that kind of data to really start fine-tuning your campaign, coming back to the testing that Danielle was saying, it might be that maybe the video on Instagram is delivering a lot of clicks, but that those people will not stay long on your website and they click away after 5 seconds, while the video on Facebook is having less clicks, but those people stay longer. And obviously, that's part of what our software will do, is to make sure that you use those variants which deliver the most interesting candidates. So that's a technical way of how we support it with our software. But I want to give also the question to Danielle. How did you evaluate the ROI? What were the ways of looking at it and deciding, well, this was a success and we're happy to do more of that?
Yeah, it was, so we also embed a source code into the links that go into the platform, and also as part of our other programmatic display and jobs, we can measure where they come from and through to our ATS. So we can track that way applicants and hires. It's, I think, ROI for us, we talked a lot about this. Is it just the awareness? Obviously, it's applications, and then it's, it's quality of applications, not just blanket applications, and then through to hires. So one thing in Germany, for example, because that's the case study we've been talking about recently for internally, is we've seen a spike since the campaign went live, we've seen a spike in actually quality applications, which is really important distinction. And so our recruiters were pleasantly surprised that kind of a few days after the campaign kicked off, that the candidates that have come through have obviously been targeted for multiple reasons, but that they feel a fit with our organization from the messages that they have been able to, see in social, and then click through and then read, and then ultimately through to our job description to apply. So we have seen a spike in quality of applications. We're not about volume. It's not like a volume hire here. We're looking for quality hire. And most importantly, the hires that want to be, working with us. Some of our sites are quite remote. So it's not like we're hiring in a, big city where there's a lot of people. So they want, we have to be realistic too about the fact that we may not be in a center. And so it's the quality and also the people who are willing and close to being around there. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe we can also share the link to the Knowledge Hub, because there we have some we've made some free content, and we've written a data-driven white paper where we explain to you how you can set it up, everything manually within yourself. It is quite technical, but there are all the steps listed to do it yourself.
Yeah. And if you go to the next slide as well, we can just have that up while we answer some of the questions. So I did see a question, which I'm happy to answer, Mark, around, do you notice a significant difference in cost per applicant and click-through rate when advertising from social media page of a recruitment or staffing agency compared to advertising directly from the company page? Yes, absolutely. We have typically used agencies in some of our markets in EMEA. And in Germany in particular. And so this is why we've kind of really put a focus on just the slides I shared today and internally around Germany, because it's one of those ones where we've really tried to show or look at, if we do it ourselves through the investment we've put in from Simple and our other channels, but managing it in-house compared to a staffing agency doing it themselves. We have noticed that, these quality candidates that we've tracked have come, organically to our site from seeing our posts on social. And as I showed, I'm transparent about the cost of Simple. It's 1,300 or 1,500, I think, 1,500 euros a month. So 30 days, hopefully, Mark, I'm not overstepping on that, but I believe that's
great. You get the best deal, right?
No, and I think I don't know exactly, but it's not a lot of spend for the quality.
Oh.
I mean, if you think of what that would be to get, 6 great candidates or 5 great candidates, that's nothing. So even if you get one hire for that, it's still nothing. So yes, Absolutely.
By the way, I was joking about, because that's not our fee. That's basically that's the variable cost for actually putting it and paying
On
TikTok.
social.
I think, just to put a number on there to keep in people's heads, for 50 euros per day, you will reach 10 to 12,000 people, right, on any given day. And that's, again, I'm going to stop, repeating myself. There's no other way of reaching that many people in a very targeted, very qualitative way, and have that kind of reach for your message. Okay, well, because it's almost 3, and I think this is a great slide to also kind of discuss a bit, but I'll let you take the lead here, Danielle.
Yeah, well, hopefully people have had a chance to scan it while I was up, but just some do's and don'ts. I think, we've talked a lot about having an employer brand. So if you don't have one, that's a really good place to start, but that obviously comes from the EVP. So you need to kind of really look internally to see what your offerings are for external, and that involves internal and external perspectives. Social media, I won't go on, but I think it's pretty clear that that's the way to go forward here. Job descriptions.
Can I challenge you though, sir?
Yeah.
Because, as I mentioned, there's some quite large companies in the webinar. We've also noticed that some companies are a bit reluctant sometimes, because obviously with that reach comes also quite a bit of exposure. People can comment on ads. People can use that. Was that something which was discussed, or was that kind of almost a very kind of easy decision internally for Cargill? Say no, that's where we want to be.
Yeah, no, it was an easy decision.
Okay.
We wanted to be where our candidates were looking. Yeah, okay. For sure. Job descriptions. I think this is one that's, and I think every few years we should all kind of relook at our job descriptions. I think we've recently done that and continue to evolve them, to be honest. And again, this is targeted by audience. So an operator or a mechanic or an engineer or someone in IT or finance is going to be very different. So I think it's important to tailor the job description and not be too jargony, too many internal corporate references, and targeting the right audience. So really understanding, what the candidates, what type of candidates we're looking for, and go speak to them. Data driven. So, look at metrics, look at click-through rates, be agile, move where you need to, just continually look at them. So the good thing around this team that I have is, because it's such a high profile project, we do have people that are, managing these projects and really looking at all aspects of it, including the data. And that's internal data, external data, not just around recruiting, but I think that it's a very data driven project, which has really helped inform decisions as well.
Can I put one on the floor, just to put one down, because I think it's a very, very, there's actually a lot of information in that bullet point, in the sense that, yes, about targeting the right audience, and nobody obviously here will disagree. But I think understand your target audience needs, which you have shown about, look, we need a DVP for a particular audience, but the messaging that resonates with them is really very important. And that's why we see a lot of corporate companies going wrong, is that they will start thinking about a brand, right? And say, look, this is our brand, this is how we communicate as a brand, and we're just going to kind of shoehorn that in the way of how we're going to communicate towards, our potential candidates or our current workforce. And you can actually go and say, it has nothing to do with that, right? Yes, of course, your branding is important, but your EVP is very, very different, because you talk to a completely different need set when you're doing that. And thirdly, all in one bullet point, right? As Stephanie mentioned, don't forget the network or the platform you're on, right? When people will be scrolling on Facebook, Instagram, they've seen pictures of their family, of their friends. If you then come with a very corporate stock image based campaign, it will actually probably do more harm than anything else. It's very different seeing a campaign there versus opening a newspaper and then seeing a beautiful corporate advertising there. You're in between, a completely different context. And that's also, as I mentioned before, why I think the Cargill campaign is so spot on. Obviously, it's of high production value. I'm sure the photographer was costing more than the annual cost of Simple, right? But it's real people. It's the people working there, and you watch those pictures and you believe that, right?
Yeah.
You know that this is not some models you've drummed up. And that's, I think, very important to keep that in mind when not only on social, but especially on social, to be as authentic as possible. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just going to say all of our models are our people.
Yeah.
So we've used and they're great. And so we're also just about to do some more photo shoots in different countries, and we keep updating those as well because it's great to have our own people, and they all look so happy. So we love that. And so I won't go into too much the don'ts because there are a lot of the flips of the others. But the one to call out here is candidate experience.
Exactly.
So so don't neglect that. And I'm a big fan of candidate experience and really trying to ensure our hiring managers are aware of this. So it's not any of us in HR. We all know how important the candidate experience is. It's really just making sure that those who are on the interview panel or those that are meeting with candidates ensure that they're respectful, they're transparent, they communicate, and just ensure that they leave, that candidate with the best impression of the organization, even if they aren't successful. So that's a really important piece that I'll call out there as well.
And I think you mentioned that on a kind of a macro level, but I would also go micro. It's very important if you want your, again, online campaign to be successful, that you kind of find the sweet spot between not putting too high a barrier, because obviously people will kind of zone out, but also not make it too easy. Because if you just ask people, please leave your email here, right, you'll get a lot of noise of people just basically replying and reacting to anything. Right, it's going to be very difficult to filter that out. You really need to think about the questions you want to ask and you don't need to ask. And I'm really surprised sometimes when we talk to some of our customers how few of them have actually done the application process themselves on their websites and experienced how hard it is sometimes, because you have to make an account, choose a password, confirm your password, just to apply.
I also want to add to that don't forget that most of the people are scrolling on social media on their mobile. They're not using their laptop, so they don't have their resume on their mobile. They just need to fill in some really short, snappy answers. Otherwise, they won't apply.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Good. But I think we're probably ready to wrap up. I think in view of Danielle, sorry, because we were kind of ending with the Cargill part. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's great. Over to you, and thank you. If you have questions, put them in the chat, and I'll try to respond as Mark is wrapping up.
I'm just going to do, we'll be respectful of your time, of everybody's time, very briefly. Yes, I think we talked a bit about that, and Danielle has really shown that with the market research, with the testing, with the messaging. That's what modern HR is doing. As I mentioned here, right? We talked about data-driven collecting data, etc., etc. Just for the remaining 2 minutes, I'll do a shameless plug of self-promotion. What we noticed from our research is that when HR people want to dig into recruitment marketing, they need a solution that's easy to use, does automatically optimize the performance of the ads, because it is quite complicated to put advertising online and also have it integrated with their ATS or with their other workflows. And that's exactly what Simple is. We have 3 hubs. First, there's a candidate hub, creative hub, where we allow you to set up your own ads very easily with our AI, writing text, making videos based on the pictures you supply. The marketing hub, as it has done for Cargill, will make sure it's targeted to the right audience and the campaigns are optimized. So we will check, is TikTok performing better than Instagram, or should we kind of reallocate budgets automatically? And that candidate hub allows candidates, that's a candidate experience, to apply easily. All of that supported with a massive amount of data, which is there for your information. You're not expected to actually act upon and start adapting campaigns. That's what the marketing hub does for you. And finally, we link with almost more than 70 ATS systems. So yours will probably be in there also. We can link with your corporate social media accounts, but we don't have to. Again, that's depending on how your communication team is happy with that or not. Good. 1 minute left, and I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, yeah, if there are still more questions, then
we've
you
tackled
can
all the
still,
questions.
all right, perfect. If you still have some questions in the next couple of days, of course, then you can always reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're happy to help you. I hope you all enjoyed the webinar. I also want to thank Danielle for joining us. It was very insightful. So thank you very much. We're just going to share a link to the demo. Still, if people are interested in our integrated recruitment marketing platform, then you can always book a demo with us to get to know the simple platform a bit more.
As if they're booking it with me. I'm just noticing. I'll give a link to my calendar.
Yeah.
So yes, so you'll have a chat with me.
And if you don't want to chat with him,
I'll pass it on to somebody else.
All right. Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope to see you again in one of our next webinars, and have a really nice afternoon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Danielle,